What's up, everybody? Troy Cartwright here. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Year Town. Before we get started, do me a favor. Go to 10yeartown.com and click Join the 10-Year Town community. All you got to do is put in an email address, and that will allow us to reach you for some upcoming special events, special episodes, things like that. It helps us out a ton and helps you stay informed. Thanks. Today's guest, we've got a 10-Year Town first. Joining us today is Trapper from SiriusXM. He is their program director, which means he is in charge of choosing what songs get played on the radio. In this episode, we talk about how they decide which songs those are, how you can get on his radar, how you can break in to the radio industry if that's something that you're interested in, and so much more. I loved this episode. I learned so much. I know you guys are going to love it too. So without further ado, here he is. You know, of course, it's like, well, if we want to do an album, and I'm like, no one cares.
Well, I kind of look at it like if you've already released most of the music, then
who cares?
You can release the album as a retrospective, so it's all in one package.
This is exactly what it is.
The music that's already out there is already out there. People know it's there. You're not surprising them. So,
and I think it's a difference. There is a difference between some albums are albums, and some albums are retrospectives.
Yeah.
And don't pull the wool over your audience's eyes.
Yeah.
And tell them it's an album when it's a retrospective. Retrospective is a good word. I'm gonna read. Guys, this isn't an album. This is a retrospective.
It's a retrospective of the last 2 years of your life.
And I'm gonna sound so smart. Retrospective. That's like a
well, I'm glad I could throw a
word.
4-syllable word out there. Yeah, that is forced. I had to count. I had to stop and count for a second.
Retrospective. Yeah,
Yes.
That's good.
I didn't pull out the fingers. I was trying to look cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure, man. I was telling a friend of mine, I said, I think I've only ever been interviewed one other time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
what an honor.
This is actually going to be, I'm actually a little bit nervous about it. So,
well, I feel incredibly unqualified to be the second interview.
Well, the other guy was a baseball play-by-play guy. So I think you're eminently qualified.
Okay. Was it Eric Nadel?
It was not, but
Okay.
good Texas pull though.
Yeah.
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 It was actually, what was the guy's name? It was in Indianapolis, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I always start this thing off with the same question, which is how long have you been in town?
Coming up on 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where before?
Dallas, Fort Worth.
Oh, nice.
I was just regular terrestrial radio guy for the better part of 35 years.
Okay. What I'm from Dallas.
Okay.
Born and raised.
Whereabouts?
I grew up in the mid cities, Coppell.
Oh, okay.
So I was about 12, and then we moved to basically North Dallas, Frankfurt and the Tollway.
Yeah.
Just a little past the Galleria.
I used to live near Addison, so.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So you understand.
I know the area. My son lives in the mid city, so.
If you want to see any chain restaurant that's ever existed, just drive down Beltline in Addison. If it's a chain, it's there. I promise.
That's where I always stay when I go back to Texas. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I miss it sometimes.
You don't get back very often.
You know, my mom still lives up there in Plano. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times she just comes here, you know, and I go back to play shows. And I was just back. I played Fort Worth, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and went to couple of the old stomping grounds in Dallas, you know, because I lived in East Dallas for a few years after college.
Okay.
So of course, you know, some fun memories.
It's just, you know, much like Nashville, East Dallas has its cool
vibe
vibe about it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So how does one get involved in terrestrial radio?
Today, I don't really know for sure. It's changed so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I started in the 80s.
Well, how did you get involved with terrestrial radio?
Back then, there were radio stations everywhere. So no talent hack like me would go into a small town. And if I did some college radio. So I'd walk in with my cassette tape of my college radio ramblings. And if it was a really small town and they were really desperate, then a guy like me got a job. And hopefully you learn a little bit along the way or find somebody that can teach you. And you graduate up to a larger market to the point that you're considered somebody that is, maybe a little more qualified for the radio business.
Yeah.
Sadly, for people that really want to do radio, there's not those proving grounds anymore. Most of the small town stations are gone, or they are all satellite or other delivery systems. They don't have local shows there or any local programming emanating there. So it's really difficult for somebody that really wants to get into radio now. I don't know. I think that a lot of the new radio talent will probably come from social media.
Well, it's just like the same thing in the music business, in the music talent game, I guess the artist game. Mm-hmm. Even when I was starting, it was play bars.
Yeah.
Play 8 Air Saloon in Dallas.
Yeah.
For 4 hours a night.
Like Jack Ingram.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why I started. That's why I wanted to play 8 Airs every Monday night myself, because of Jack. But, it's that's very hard to do now. There's for one of those reasons would be that there's just not as many places to play anymore. It's kind of like the radio analogy. And then, it's just like, well, you could play to, 30 people in a bar, or you could potentially reach 3 or 30 million people on your phone. So I get it why it's changing, but it does feel different.
What do you think about where it is now, where somebody can go from zero to hero so quickly, and maybe just because they've got really great social media game?
I think it is mostly amazing. Mm-hmm. I think the part where it gives me a little bit of heartburn is that, especially in Nashville, there is a craft. There is a craft to playing a live show. There's a craft to writing songs. And there's also a craft to social media. And I think you can become, a lot of times actually, when you go viral on social media, it's not even that you're good at social media. It's that you catch lightning in a bottle. And I think that is beautiful, because I think that discovery is actually one of the hardest things. So now anybody can get attention, and that's good. I think the part that gives me heartburn is people seem to get chewed up and spit out quite quickly now. And maybe someone who was destined for a long career goes viral, gets a lot of money. This thing happens and they never can quite measure up. So in a short time, they're out of the business. And that causes me, that makes me sad, because I think that everyone deserves, unlimited chances and to feel like they're ready for the opportunities that come their way.
I have noticed, at least in the country music genre, and I can't speak for other genres very much, but we used to be more artist centric than I think we are now.
Yeah.
And I think that it is not, it's very, very, it's becoming very song based now, where before it was a lot of long-term careers. I mean, if you put together 1 or 2 or 3 hits, it's like pretty good chance you're going to be around for a while. Mm-hmm. And now you could be around for a while, but it could be a couple of years from now, you're like yesterday's news.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're any less talented. It's not that your songs are any good. It's just that the audience is moving along. They're moving on to something new so much quicker, it seems.
Yeah. I don't know what the antidote is for that, other than as a creative person, I try and think what's never going to change. What is somebody always going to want?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are always going to want to listen to great songs that stir their soul and hit them in the heart. And that's all that I can ever control or attempt to do.
Right.
And so I think as long as I'm chasing that,
I still think you probably have to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on. And I know you're listening to a lot. You're listening, so you know what's going on, and you may not even consciously thinking about it when you're creating.
Yeah.
It probably just comes to you that it's like, this fits with what we're doing today, and you don't have to think about it. And this is one reason, and I'll drop one name. That's why I appreciate Keith Urban so much.
Yeah.
Is that if you go back to 1999 when he first went solo to where he is now, he has never. I don't think anybody could ever accuse him of doing the same old every time.
No.
He's always reinventing. And you can see it when he starts, presenting new music to you, how passionate he is. But I think that's a very specific gift that he has.
Yes, he's willing to disrupt himself constantly. He's not just trying to make the same record over and over again. I mean, I assume there's some part of his brain that goes, somebody might not like this as much as the old stuff or whatever, but he just keeps trying to make something new.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for that.
Always.
Yeah. So how did you, I guess, like what kind of music did you start off? I guess programming or DJing. I don't even know what the proper terms are.
I didn't grow up listening to country music at all. You're a Dallas guy. You might remember Reunion Arena.
Of course.
That was the concert venue of Dallas-Fort Worth when I was a kid. And in the 80s, pretty much everybody played there. I went to see them. It was mostly, I say everybody, the rock-based stuff.
Yeah.
I was hair metal guy.
Okay.
And with a few side ventures because I liked Mellencamp and I saw the Kinks one time, but I was there for Quiet Riot and every Van Halen show. But when I first got into radio, the first job that presented itself to me was at a country station. So I didn't know anything about it, but I've been doing this pretty solidly since 1986.
Yeah. What station was it, by the way?
It was a little station in Bridgeport, Texas that doesn't exist anymore. Bridgeport is, 60 miles north of Fort Worth, maybe.
Okay, gotcha.
Little tiny town.
And it is a common theme with radio people that you had to move a lot in your career?
I've moved quite a bit.
What are all the places that you've been?
I did Bridgeport, just going in order. Went Bridgeport to Abilene, Texas, to Waco, Texas, Tyler, Texas, then back to Waco, Texas, then to Indianapolis, Memphis, New Orleans, and then Dallas-Fort Worth.
Wow. That's crazy.
I had U-Haul on speed dial for sure. Yeah. Got really good at moving stuff.
Yeah. Do you just get used to it, or do you just have less stuff over time?
You learn to travel more lightly. I did somewhat get accustomed to a new town, and just getting used to the idea of new surroundings.
Yeah.
In my later years, it starts to blur together a little bit. Like, if I think of the layout of some of these towns, I'm like, is that Waco or is that Tyler? I don't remember. So
yeah. And I guess that's interesting too. Like, is this current stop like one of your longer stops along the way?
One of the longer, yeah. When I went back to Dallas-Fort Worth, I was at my radio station for 9 years.
Okay.
And was fine there until this job with SiriusXM came calling. And it was such a great opportunity. I just bought a house. I didn't plan on moving again. My mom certainly wasn't planning on me moving away again because I'd been gone for such a long time. But when I came here, it was like, okay, this was, such a great opportunity. And I still found a way to move every year the first 4 years that I was in Nashville, trying to find exactly where I belong. But I found cheap rent near Belle Meade, so I'm sticking there.
Okay, there you go. Mm. That's great. And how, there's so much I don't know about your world and the radio world. Like, how does... at the place that you're at, which in my mind you're like close to the top of the mountain, you know, the heap, the ladder, if you
The
will.
highway is a pretty big deal. It's probably the most listened to country music platform in the world.
Yeah.
And I still have to think I'm actually on this. I'm part of this. It's really kind of amazing to me, but it is pretty amazing. And with it comes that responsibility of, you know, wanting to make sure that we are exposing music and helping build, you know, artists' careers.
Yeah.
It's important to us. And it never gets old going onto Instagram the morning of our new music show, which it debuts on Saturdays, and seeing an artist post a video of them hearing their song on the radio for the very first time.
Yeah. I
mean, I still will get choked up on that every single time. I love it.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got one of those.
Mm-hmm.
It and a lot of people saw it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it was beautiful. Yeah. How did you, as far, I'll ask you a little bit about, you know, how you find stuff and how you like to listen to stuff in a little bit, but how does, you're living in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Does like Mr. XM just call you one day and is like, we like what you do and come work for us? Or
the radio business is oftentimes very much about who you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very fortunate to work with a guy in Dallas named J.R. Schumann, who, for whatever reason, thought I had something to offer. And when he left and came to SiriusXM, right from jump, he says, "You need to come up here with me. You need to come here with me." But there was a lot of legal reasons why I couldn't at the time based on his deal and everything. And when that was cleared, he made one more move, and I just got married. I just bought a house. I'm like, it's really not a great time, but it just seemed like too good of an opportunity. But it was mainly just because I had one guy that believed in what I could do.
Yeah.
And so I followed him up here.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how, I guess, like you said, you've had so many, I don't know, you've been responsible for so many artists' firsts, first time getting played on the radio, and probably, you know, I was just out on tour opening up for Adam Doliak.
Love Doliak.
And you can really see, you know, Adam is an incredible artist and has had a lot of success in all aspects of his career, but it is, you know, I think that XM has played a big part in helping to grow his audience, just as an example.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, just because of the reach that we have, and there are artists like Adam that have not gotten a full shake at the terrestrial radio level, which means 155 country music stations playing your stuff at the same time. He hasn't really gotten enough of a look there, and we've given him several looks on our platform, which isn't quite the same, but it's still a pretty big look. And I think for him, it allows him to, you know, expand what he does and sell those hard tickets and have people singing the songs back to him. And that's what we want to do. We want to build these partnerships. Yeah.
I mean, I was seeing it every night. It's like, that's the power of radio right there.
Oh,
you know, I mean, that's real. That's as real as it gets, selling the hard tickets and having people singing the songs back. You're like,
yeah. It was so thrilling a while back. This is like maybe last fall. Kelsey Hart was an artist that we got on a little early, and he came out and played our Music Row Happy Hour down on Lower Broadway. And it was the Friday before his song went #1 with us. And it was just starting to get a look at terrestrial radio, but it was not something where people were singing it back to him a whole lot, but they started singing it back to him loud that day.
Yeah.
And then we told him too that it's like, oh, it just so happens your song's going #1 this week. And yeah, he did a little bit of blubbering that day. I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry, Kelsey, but yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, what are some other like high watermarks along the way, that some of your favorite moments like that?
Oh gosh. It's really hard to even quantify, I guess, just because there's so many artists that are our people.
Yeah.
Mitchell Tenpenny has long been a highway guy, and I'm glad things are really starting to, pick up even more for him on the terrestrial side. But he's another guy that can go anywhere and sell out a room, and people are just screaming the lyrics back to him. Hardy was somebody who very early on, he was a highway find. I don't know if you're familiar with the highway find
of course,
program, but for the uninitiated, it's just kind of like where we really get behind an artist earlier in their career. Morgan Wallen was, when I first came to town, was still a pretty new act for us, but we ask our audience a lot of questions. And very early on, it was probably after we played the song Little Rain, we just started to see where not only was the music working, but when we were just testing artists' names, his name was really coming back quite a bit. And it was before he really was a known commodity, but you could kind of see something was building there. And that was pretty exciting to see.
Yeah. And that's leads me to a few questions. When you talk about, and when people in radio talk about like tested, I think you just said we tested a song. What does that mean?
We have a pretty robust database of people who are subscribers and fans of the highway. And on a weekly basis, we have a list of what we call hooks of songs. It's like 10 seconds of a song, just so people can get an idea. Oh, they're talking about this song, and they hear a little bit of it. And then we ask them to rate it. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Are you tired of it? Are you not familiar with it? And we send that out every week to a portion of our database, and we get a pretty good sample back every week. We build our Hot 30 countdown partly off of that.
Gotcha.
But it's very, very actionable data for us, where we can break it down by demographic or whatever, just to find out how is the music doing. And we get our songs into research pretty early so that we can find out, what's working and what's not working. And, sometimes they tell us that, hey, we were exactly right. We put this song on and it's a home run. And then sometimes it's like, yeah, the audience isn't liking our pick all that much. but it's still, it's a great tool to have.
Yeah. Is that unusual, or is that type of research that you're able to do specific to XM and the highway, and that it's
more radio entities used to do more of this. I don't know how many are able to, just because there's usually a built-in cost for it.
Gotcha.
And at terrestrial radio, that's often not in the budget. We've very fortunate that we do have that. It's important to us. We're all about breaking new music, so we really need as many tools as we can. And that's one data point for us, by the way, too, because we still look at things like, streaming. We used to look at downloads a lot more, but that's changed over the last 5 years, where there's not that much in the way of downloading going on, but there's still, the streaming numbers are really important. Shazams, the data that we get from our sister company, Pandora, because we can get some actionable data there, especially early on in a song's life, just to kind of get an idea of an early snapshot of how a song's looking for that audience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We're nerds. It's like everything, every little data point that we can get that can steer us in the right direction. We just want to do right by the music.
Yeah. When you think about the next 20 years of music, I feel like I've lived in Nashville for 8 years. And people since I got here have been like, well, radio is dying. It's doing this, it's doing that. But like, to me, that's so obviously not the case because it's so, if you don't have it, it's possible to build a great career, but having it helps a ton.
Yeah, there are the rare artists that can go completely without radio, but it's still a powerful medium.
Yes,
and I'm not just saying the highway. The highway is definitely powerful, but all radio channels have their own thing to offer, and it's important.
Yeah. So I guess like do you think about that much? Like what does the future look like? 10 years from now, or because the way people consume music is always evolving. And
frankly, I think that there are people that want to be on the cutting edge of what's new, but still don't want to search it all out on their own. And they have to be able to trust somebody to curate it for them. And a lot of people trust us to do that. And we hope to keep rewarding them so that they keep, giving us that trust.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think that's something that you're going to get from radio and from personalities that
Mm-hmm.
and trust, that that it's harder to get from an algorithm. Seems like everything is just based on an algorithm now, but at a certain
The algorithms are scary good though.
Oh, they are. They are. They are.
I'd like to think that we're better than any algorithm, but man, those algorithms are scary.
Yeah. The some of the like Spotify features are, I'm like, this is crazy, but it's always missing context. And I think that's one of the things that I like about listening to radio or satellite radio or whatever, is like, I'm going to turn on the highway when I want to have my, when I'm in a certain mood and I know what I'm going to get. And that doesn't always happen,
Mm-hmm.
if you're just straight letting an algorithm pick it out for you.
Yeah.
So, well, that's interesting. So what kind of things, like, how do you find new music?
Because I am in this business,
Mm-hmm.
I'm always actively just keeping tabs on what is going on. Now, obviously, we know people in the management world and, sometimes in the artist world, sometimes in the songwriter world, but there's a lot of people that are letting us know what's going on. And in case somehow somebody didn't notify me of something, again, going back to being the data nerd that I am, I'm constantly just looking for something that is going to tell me what the next new thing is.
Yeah.
It was part of that, bit of just trying to follow the numbers. And I can't say I was like prescient or super duper early, but, I was reading the tea leaves and saw the numbers on Dasha early. And that's why the highway became the first radio entity anywhere to play Dasha. It's just because, it's like this jumped out and I was like, something's happening here. Let's do something with it. That's what our goal is to be ahead of everything. We want to have what we'll call a clean story where, with any luck, we've gotten it before anybody else has, before it's gone viral, even before it's a super streaming property. Is like to be able to prospect and say, we believe in this and we're going to be on the cutting edge of it and we're going to be playing it before anybody else. And hopefully it blows up.
I love that clean story. Does that just mean you can take the credit?
Well, yeah, clean as for the company, for the company to take that, just so nobody can say, well, that's great that you guys played that there, but you got that from YouTube or you got that from Spotify or whatever. So
yeah, well, I always ask people for somebody that wants to. We've talked to a lot of songwriters on here, a lot of publishers, but you're the first radio person that we've had on here. Yes. And this has been so fascinating. So thank you so much. If there's somebody out there that wants to get involved in radio or in that sort of space, like what kind of advice would you give them for the journey?
I think it's be interested. I think if you're interested, interesting things will come out. If you're interested in communicating, if you want to be an on-air person, if you're interested in communicating something, whether it's about music or about something that you saw on the streets of Nashville, whatever it is, I think if you're interested enough to communicate that and you're interested enough in telling that story, then you'll be good at it. I think if you're interested enough in, like, for me, it's like to be able to say, Adam Doliak's in my phone and we've been playing Adam Doliak for a long time. And, I feel very connected to artists of that caliber, just to be able to say, hey, this is a really talented artist and we've been there, from, the very beginning.
Yeah.
And to be interested in trying to build a career whether it's from, if you're a manager, to try to, pull all the right strings to build that artist career. But if you're, going to do it from the radio side, to listen to everything and to maybe be a little bit of a data nerd and to try to figure out, what is going to be the next big thing and then find that next big thing.
Yeah. Wow. It's great advice.
I felt like I rambled there a little bit.
No, you didn't. I mean, being interested is, I think, underrated across the board, whether you want to write songs, whether you want to be an artist, or in any job, in any walk of life. You can never, I read books all the time, and I don't really know why I'm reading a paper about traffic patterns, but it's one day I'm sitting in traffic and I'm like, well, at least now I know why, and like, how will that connect the dots for me down the road? I'm not really sure, but I'm inspired by being interested. And so that inspires me that, that's the type of advice that you would give.
It's cribbed a little bit again from my friend J.R. Schumann, who one time I remember him giving that advice to somebody when doing an interview.
Yeah.
He said, be interested, because if you're interested, you're probably going to ask interesting questions, the questions that the interviewee has never heard before, because you just want to know something. So you're not saying, what are your influences?
Right.
You're saying, why is Merle Haggard an influence? What's your favorite Merle Haggard song? Wherever that might take you, based on your level of interest.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here and being on this podcast. We really appreciate it.
It's been my honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right. That's it. That's the pod. See you later. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. If you want to submit a question for one of our Q&A episodes, you can do so at tenuretowne.com. We would love it if you would join the Tenuretown community, which just means we'll send you updates via email about stuff we got going on. And of course, please rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Wherever you listen or watch this thing, we appreciate you so much. See you next week.